Hey guys, thanks for being with me. Tonight we got new lighting. I got my room blacked out a little bit so I can shoot videos whenever I want to instead of having to wait for it to get dark. Kind of treating my man cave like, I don't know what you call it, studio, I guess. So that's going to be helpful so I can shoot videos whenever I feel like shooting a video instead of having to wait until it's dark. I know that's ridiculous, right? So hopefully I can put out more videos. This video, I don't have notes. I didn't do a ton of research. I have my trusty Exploring Wine book here that I'm going to talk about a little bit. So stick with me because it's kind of a story time. We're going to do a little story time. I'm going to put out some review videos too soon. But tonight's story time. So stick with me, guys. We're going to talk about something I've talked about before, which is California and the kind of boom of the wine industry in California and how that all got started. I've talked about this before, but I'm going to talk about it from a little bit of a different angle tonight, and I'm going to focus more on a specific wine. So in 1976, and you'll hear about this on a lot of wine channels, there was a contest that a British guy put together in France. He was a wine merchant. I think he had a bar, collector, merchant, seller of wine, collector of wine. And he wanted to put together a contest and see how some American wines stacked up against some European wines. And the French went for this. You know, the French at that time it was back then it was spoken, red wine was spoken of back then and white wine. I think the French and even a lot of Americans spoke about French wine, that it was just assumed that the best wine was French wine. If you were a person of money or a movie star and you had a party at your house, you would, in the 50s and 60s and 70s, you would have French wine because French wine was the expensive wine and it was the well-known wine and it was the wine with the most heritage. And if you wanted to show off to your friends and drink the best wine in the world, it was just assumed that it was French. There wasn't a lot of people standing around going, oh no, I think some of the wines from Napa Valley those are pretty good. People would probably just laugh at you. So this guy was like, I think some of these wines are pretty good. And all the judges were French, and they got some Chardonnay. I believe it was 10 Cabernets. And I can't remember. Like I said, I didn't sit here and do an hour of research for this video. A lot of this is just my cousin, who's a chef, he sent me this book. And I love wine so much that I actually read this whole book in like 3 days. I didn't read, there's a couple sections in here on different regions. And I'll admit, I haven't read about Portuguese wines, Israeli wines, Argentina. I haven't read every chapter, but I read Burgundy in France, Italy, Washington, California. But all the tasting and the making of wine and everything, I read all that. I read the majority of the book in 3 days, and I've read a lot of the book 3 or 4 times. I love the book. It's a great book, and actually you can get this now used on eBay for like $20. I think you can get it on Amazon brand new for $30. It's a steal. This is the book that if you go to the Culinary Institute of America and you become a chef, this is actually learning criteria. What's the word I'm looking for? This is one of your school books. My brain is freezing up right now, but this is required reading if you are to become a chef. Anyway, so they have the contest and all the judges are French, but it's blind, so they don't know what they're drinking. And lo and behold, Stag's Leap from Napa Valley was placed in first place with the highest points. And I don't remember all the placings, but there was a few different American wines in the white wines. Chateau Montelena from Napa Valley, which they still make Cabernet and Chardonnay and a bunch of wines. And you can still buy those wines. Matter of fact, their Cabernet is like $80, and they have it most places. A lot of grocery stores have Chateau Montelena, and their Chardonnay is fantastic. But in the white wines, that California won, and California also won, Stag's Leap won for the red wines portion. And the French judges were upset. They were not, they weren't happy about this. One of my go-tos, Louis and Martini, Napa Valley, Cabernet, $55. Costco right now, $30 with a $5 rebate, $30. I recently bought like 6 bottles of it. So The French are mad. They were not happy about this, but this was what got California going. Napa did not look the way that Napa looks now back then, and so it was in Time magazine. People started going on vacation to Napa to try these wines. These wineries got bank loans and built beautiful chateaus, wineries, and bought more property, and growers started making more money, and the winery started making more money, and there was a lot of publicity and a lot of money flowed into Napa. And now we have the privilege, especially if you live in California like me, of driving to Napa and just having this beautiful Napa Valley to explore with all these beautiful places to go dine, enjoy wine. You don't have to spend a lot of money. Some of these wineries are famous and they make wonderful wine, and you can do tastings for $50, $100. And if you want to, you could stay in a Motel 6 downtown Napa for $80 a night. And you get up and you can drive all the way across the valley in 40 minutes. You can drive up on the side of the mountains in the morning, and when the fog clears, you can see the whole valley. And you can just drive around and pack a lunch, and you do not have to spend that much money. And it's beautiful. And we owe a lot of that to these wines that performed in the 76. Now, 30 years later, in 2006, someone came up with the idea that let's do this, have the contest again, and let's taste the wines from the 76. We're not going to taste new wines. We're going to go get those wines, and we're going to see how they held up over 30 years. Did the French wines hold up? Did the American wines hold up? And a lot of those wines were fantastic, and they did hold up well. But a wine that got fifth place, not Stag's Leap, a wine that got fifth place in the 76 got first place in the 2006. And all the wines, though, it was a mixture of judges, of French and American judges, I believe. And they were actually, it wasn't blind. They were told, this is an American wine, this is a French wine. And they had people from France, so you could say that they were biased, and you had Americans and other Europeans. You could say that they all had their own biases. But they all, I think, were participating in an open-minded way, and they wanted to be fair, and they tasted the wines. And the wine that held up over 30 years that was now the best wine was from the Santa Cruz Mountains. Ridge Vineyards, Ridge Monte Bello, which is this wine right here. In 2006, this was the winner. This was the wine. Mouton Rothschild, Haut-Brion, Montrose, wines from Burgundy. Who else? I'm not sure if Lafite was entered, but a lot of these wines now, if you go buy the newest released vintage, are all about $600. This wine in 2006, I believe, was only about $120. Don't quote me on that. That's a very rough estimate. This wine now is $250. But considering that Mouton is about $5, Lafite, Haut-Brion, and Margaux, those wines are $600 now. Chateau Son, Cheval Blanc, those wines are $800 to $1,000. And if you go back and you want the 2000 or the 2005 or the 2006, those wines are $1,000, $1,500. You can get an older vintage of this for about $350, or the famous vintages are about $400, which compared to the French wines, which are over $1,000, is a steal. And if you live near a major city like I do, you can go to any Total Wine, walk in, go to the right or the left, depending on which one you're in, and they'll have a refrigerated area where their premium wines are, and they always have this. This is $250. I understand $250 is a lot of money, but if you've ever been watching a movie and you saw a bunch of rich people sitting around drinking an expensive bottle of wine, and you thought to yourself, I wonder what the best wine in the world is. And some people watching this video might scoff and go, Ridge Monte Bello is not the best wine in the world, and they'll be upset because it's not their favorite wine. But this wine has come out close or above the first growths, some of the most expensive wine in the world, more than once. And this wine routinely scores over 95 points and sometimes 100 points by a wine journalist, which isn't everything. I've had this wine. It's fantastic. It drinks well young. You can open. This is a 2019. I wouldn't dare open it right now. My wife bought me this bottle for my birthday a few months ago. The 2015s and 16s are drinking good. This drinks good young. You could go, but if you live in a major city, you can go buy this right now for $250. And if you want to know what some of the best wine in the world is, in my opinion, this is one of the best bottles. It is one of the best bottles. It's really good. And let's talk a little bit about specifically this wine. So if you go online And in editing, we'll put some pictures up. In the Santa Cruz Mountains, way up in the hills overlooking Santa Cruz, on the side of the mountain, they have a vineyard called Monte Bello. And the most premium blocks from that are put into this wine. And this particular vintage is 82% Cabernet Sauvignon and 9% Merlot and 8% Petit Verdot and 1% Cabernet Franc. And the reason that they do that is under different growing conditions, those different varieties come out different, and they will blend them each year just to get the best flavor profile. And those grape varieties they each offer a different acidity, different tannins, different colors, and different flavors. And what you get is, and that's not what this, I've already said, this is Louis and Martini Napa. But what you get in this wine is a combination of those grape varieties, just like Bordeaux. That's how they do it in France. So that depending on how the weather was, you can blend the different blocks and those different varieties and get a wine that's very complex. This wine has dark fruits. It has light fruits. It has maybe like hints, depending on the vintage, hints of eucalyptus, mint. One thing I noticed when I drink this wine is it has some of what the European and the French wines have, which is stuff like whetstone, leather, tobacco, mint, which is a little hint of mint in the background on a cab for me is one of my favorite things. But yeah, whetstone, mint, leather, forest floor. This has a little bit of that, but it's a little more fruit dominant, which is what California wines offer. And I like that. Now, what's funny, and the French would never admit this, if you take the first growth, all the growth wines, second, third, fourth, fifth, ranging from $100 to $1,000, a lot of the French wines since about 2018, they're starting to taste a little bit more like Napa. And you know, hopefully a French plane doesn't fly over my house right now and a guy jumps out with a parachute and comes through the ceiling right now, because they would be very angry if I was to insinuate that the French are looking over the fence at the Napa vineyards and going, maybe we should make our wine a little bit more like theirs. Look, growers in Napa respectfully copied France with a Bordeaux blend, which is what this is. Cabernet Merlot, Petit Verdot, Cabernet Franc. This is a Bordeaux blend, and they admit that this is a Bordeaux blend. They call it Meritage or Meritage in California, but it's a Bordeaux blend. And they give respect to France. And now France, I think, is giving a little bit of respect back because their wines are now showing up, and lo and behold, they're more fruit forward. So besides the whetstone, mint, leather, tobacco, forest floor type of flavors, you're getting a lot of powerful fruit up front, and the wine's a little bit more concentrated, which I like. The older French wines from the early 2000s, which are aging beautifully now, I like more this style. So I can't wait to see what the French first growths, all the growths up to the fifth growth from 2018 to 2023, the newer style. I'm curious to see what those wines are like 10, 20, 30 years from now. Because I like the direction that France is going now. But if you're watching this video, the good news is if you live in California, you can drive to this winery, and I think a tasting is maybe $75. I think if they have a library tasting, most wineries do. I haven't checked recently. If you go to Santa Cruz and you get the library tasting, they might let you taste some older vintages of this. And I should have brought up the Chardonnay. I went to Paso. They just put a tasting room in Paso. And you can go there, and it's just a little aluminum building, but they have this, and you can buy this there. And their Chardonnay that recently came out got 100 points from Jeb Dunnick. So not only do they make great red wine, they make Chardonnay. I should have brought my bottles up here. I have 2 bottles of the Chardonnay that I just bought in Paso the other day. So I have their Chardonnay. I'm a Ridge fan. I'm a Ridge fanboy. In case you haven't noticed during this video, I'm a Ridge fanboy. But if you live near a Total Wine and you're exploring wine, go buy some inexpensive wine from some of my other videos and check those out, because inexpensive wine is good too. One of my favorite wines is Lodi Red Blend, which is like a Zinfandel Cabernet Sauvignon Cabernet Franc blend that's like $15, and it's a great wine. But if you just maybe want to impress somebody, or you have a date, or you yourself just want to know what high-end cab tastes like, you can go on wine.com, and I think you can get a vintage of this that's like a 2016, which would be drinking pretty good right now for about $300. And I know $300 is a lot of money, but it's a lot cheaper than the French top wines that are Paul Mare starts at $450, and for a 2015 or 16, you're looking at $500 or $600. And for the first growths, if you get one that's ready to drink, which those wines aren't ready to drink for at least 10 or 15 years, you quickly get up to $1,000. So the fact that you can get a bottle of this, and if you're really just in a hurry, these drink okay young. If you buy a bottle of this is the 2019, which they have a Total Wine right now, pour it into a decanter when you go wherever you're running some errands on your day off at like noon, and leave it in the decanter for 5 hours. Then pour it carefully back into the bottle, put it back in the fridge, let it come down to temperature, and then later in the evening pour it in your glass and make sure it's not too cold, and give it a really good decant, and have some sharp cheddar cheese or a steak. Those proteins and those fats will bind with the tannins that haven't had time to age and calm down, and they'll bring the fruit flavors, and all the flavors of the wine will come out, because those tannins from the stems and from the skins, like when you drink tea, those tannins, they're kind of like a drying effect in your mouth. They're a little bit, kind of feels like your mouth's drying out, and they can taste a little bit bitter, especially when they're young and they haven't had time to age. But this wine is made very well. It drinks fine young. And if you have some extra sharp cheddar cheese and a charcuterie board and then maybe a steak later, the tannins will bind with those proteins and the wine will be fine. You can drink this wine right now with a ribeye steak. If you go in town here, there's a restaurant I like called the Limelight. They have bottle service. You can take this bottle in. They'll open it for you, and you tell them just bring it out with a steak, and they'll pour it for you with your steak, and it drinks great now. So if you want to surprise your lady and you go out on a date, buy a bottle of this, call them and ask them what their bottle service rules are, bring the bottle, give it to them, and they'll bring it out to the table. And it's just fantastic. It's a fantastic wine. I'm a little bit of a Ridge fanboy. I love it because it's near where I live and I can go and visit them and drink at the winery, and it's not that expensive. And although $250 is a lot of money, it's not unobtainium. I mean, if you're in college and you're a waiter and you've been dating the same girl for 5 years and you want to ask her to marry you, you could probably put some tips aside for a month or two and you could swing $250. You might have to save your money for a month or two, but you could drink some of the best wine in the world. So, by the way, if you're in France and you're watching this, which I don't think I have any French viewers, I love French wine. I love all the growth wines. Someday I want to get a double door in my living room and have all the first growths. I have nothing but respect for the French. If it wasn't for them, we wouldn't have this. So we all, all these wineries stand on the shoulders of greats before them, and they learn and they produce. And this wine wouldn't exist without what the French have done. So we respect the French. We love their wine. I love to collect their wine. I'm not a rich man, so I don't have all the first growths. Someday, I aspire to have the first growths. But right now, this wine is a little bit more affordable for me. So I've ranted on now for a very long time. If you're still here, man, thank you, because this was a long video. Thank you for being with me. Now that I got my new setup, I should be able to pump out some more videos. Hopefully, I'll just drop like 5 videos this week. If you regularly watch my videos, thank you very much. I'm probably going to keep doing this just because I love talking about wine, and I'll probably never make a cent from it. But if you watch my videos and you like them, that's cool. Thanks for being with me.